Get your filthy hands off me, Marcus! Elena's voice cracked as her ex-husband's palm connected with her cheek, the sharp sound echoing through the marble corridors of the Metropolitan Museum's Grand Gala Hall. The stunning brunette in her emerald silk gown stumbled backward, her hand flying to her burning cheek as tears of humiliation welled in her hazel eyes. You think you can just waltz in here with your fancy dress and pretend you're better than me? Marcus hissed, his face twisted with rage and alcohol-fueled hatred. You're nothing without me, Elena. Nothing. Before we continue, please subscribe for my cause. The 42-year-old divorce attorney had worked for 3 years to rebuild her life after escaping her toxic marriage, and now here he was, drunk and violent at the most important charity event of her career. Other guests were starting to stare, their whispered conversations creating a buzz of scandal that made Elena's stomach churn with shame. I said get away from me, she whispered, backing toward the towering marble pillars that lined the museum's great hall. Her heart hammered against her ribs as Marcus advanced, his expensive tuxedo unable to hide the predator beneath. Or what? Marcus sneered, raising his hand again. You'll call security? You'll run crying to your lawyer friends? Face it, Elena. You're still the same pathetic woman who couldn't keep her husband happy. Elena flinched, closing her eyes and bracing for another blow. But instead of the sting of his palm, she heard a low, dangerous voice that seemed to vibrate through the very air around them. Touch her again and die. The words were spoken so quietly, so calmly, that they were more terrifying than any shout. Elena's eyes snapped open to see a tall, imposing figure in an impeccably tailored black suit standing directly behind Marcus. The man's large, manicured hand had wrapped around Marcus's wrist with what looked like casual ease, but Elena could see her ex-husband's face contorting in pain. I'm sorry. Who the hell are you? Marcus tried to bluster, but his voice came out strained as he attempted to pull free from the stranger's grip. Someone you don't want to know, the man replied, his steel-gray eyes never leaving Marcus's face. Elena found herself studying her unexpected savior. He was perhaps in his late 40s, with salt-and-pepper hair perfectly styled and strong, aristocratic features that belonged on a Renaissance sculpture. There was an aura of controlled power about him that made the air itself seem to thicken. This is between me and my wife, Marcus spat, still struggling. Ex-wife, Elena corrected automatically, surprised by her own voice. We've been divorced for 3 years. The stranger's grip tightened imperceptibly, and Marcus actually whimpered. Ah, so you're the type of man who terrorizes women in public places. How disappointing. His accent held just a hint of something European, Italian, perhaps. I suggest you leave. Now. You can't tell me what to do, Marcus said, but all the fight was draining out of his voice. Do you know who I am? I'm Marcus Whitmore. My family owns half the real estate in Manhattan. A cold smile curved the stranger's lips. How quaint. And I'm Dante Rossellini. He paused, letting the name sink in. Perhaps you've heard of me. Elena watched the color drain completely from Marcus's face. Even she recognized that name. Dante Rossellini was mentioned in whispered conversations at the courthouse, a businessman whose legitimate enterprises were only the tip of a very dangerous iceberg. The newspapers called him everything from a modern Renaissance prince to New York's most powerful shadow king. Mr. Rossellini, Marcus stammered, I had no idea. I mean, if I had known you were here? You would have what? Been less of a coward? Dante's voice remained perfectly calm, conversational even, which somehow made it more menacing. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to this lady, and then you're going to leave. If I see you approach her again tonight, or any other night, it will be the last thing you do. Marcus nodded frantically. Elena, I'm sorry. I had too much to drink. I'm sorry. Good. Dante released Marcus's wrist, and Elena's ex-husband nearly stumbled in his haste to back away. Oh, and Marcus? I'll be making some calls about your business practices. I have a feeling the authorities might find your recent tax filings Interesting. With that parting shot, Marcus practically ran toward the exit, leaving Elena alone with the most dangerous man in New York. She pressed her palm to her still stinging cheek, acutely aware that her entire body was trembling. "Are you all right?" Dante asked, and she was surprised by the gentleness that had entered his voice. When she looked up at him, those steel-gray eyes had softened with what looked like genuine concern. Yes, thank you. You didn't have to." Elena's voice trailed off as she realized she was staring. Up close, Dante Rossellini was devastatingly handsome, in a way that made her mouth go dry. There were lines around his eyes that spoke of experience and hard-won wisdom, and when he moved, it was with the fluid grace of an apex predator. "May I?" he asked, producing a pristine white handkerchief from his jacket pocket. When Elena nodded mutely, he reached out and gently dabbed at the corner of her mouth, where she realized there was a small cut from Marcus's ring. The simple touch sent electricity shooting through Elena's entire body. It had been so long since any man had touched her gently, and the contrast between Dante's careful ministrations and Marcus's violence was overwhelming. "You're bleeding," he murmured, his fingers barely grazing her chin as he tilted her face toward the light. "Has he done this before?" Elena's breath caught. "During our marriage, yes, but not since the divorce. He's never approached me in public like this." Something dark flickered across Dante's features. "He won't again." "Mr. Rossellini, I appreciate what you did, but I don't want you to think that I can't handle." "Dante," he interrupted, "and I can see that you're perfectly capable of handling yourself. But no one should have to face that kind of treatment alone." He stepped back slightly, giving her space but not moving away entirely. "You're Elena Whitmore, aren't you? The attorney who handled the Castellano custody case?" Elena blinked in surprise. "You know my work? I make it my business to know the best lawyers in the city. Your reputation for protecting the vulnerable is admirable." There was something in his tone that she couldn't quite decipher. "Though I believe your maiden name is Morrison?" "Yes, I changed it back after the divorce. How did you—" Elena caught herself. Of course he would know. Men like Dante Rossellini didn't survive by leaving anything to chance. "Elena Morrison," he repeated as if testing how it sounded. "Much better. You should never have to carry another person's name like a chain." The observation was so astute, so perfectly accurate to how she had felt, that Elena found herself really looking at him for the first time. Beneath the dangerous reputation and the obvious power, there was an intelligence in his eyes that spoke to something deeper. "I should go," she said softly, though she found herself reluctant to leave. "I've caused enough of a scene, and I have court early tomorrow." "Stay," Dante said, and it wasn't quite a command, but it wasn't entirely a request either. "Don't let him chase you away from something you were enjoying." Elena glanced around the elegant gala, where other guests were still stealing curious looks in their direction. "I'm not sure I can enjoy it now. Everyone's staring." "Let them stare." Dante offered her his arm with old-world courtesy. "Dance with me." "I don't think that's a good idea," Elena said, even as her treacherous body wanted to move closer to him. "I mean, given your reputation, being seen with you could complicate things for my practice." Dante's eyebrows rose slightly. "You're worried about your reputation?" "Should I be?" For a long moment he studied her face with those penetrating gray eyes. "Yes," he said finally. "Probably. But I'm asking anyway." The honesty was unexpected and somehow more compelling than any smooth lie would have been. Elena found herself placing her hand on his arm before she could talk herself out of it. "One dance." "One dance," he agreed, leading her toward the ballroom where couples swayed to the soft jazz quartet. The moment Dante's hand settled on her waist and his fingers intertwined with hers, Elena knew she had made a mistake, not because he was dangerous, though he certainly was, but because of the way her entire body came alive under his touch. It had been years since she'd felt anything but professional competence and quiet determination. This sudden flare of desire was as terrifying as it was intoxicating. "You're tense," he observed as they began to move together. He was an excellent dancer, leading her with confident ease around the floor. "I'm dancing with Dante Rossellini," Elena replied. "I think tension is appropriate." He laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. "I'm not going to hurt you, Elena." "Maybe not intentionally," she met his gaze directly. "But men like you, everything comes at a price." "Men like me?" His hand tightened slightly on her waist, drawing her incrementally closer. "Powerful men. Men who are used to getting what they want." Elena's voice was steady despite the way her pulse was racing. "Men who treat women like possessions. Is that what you think I'm doing?" Elena considered the question as they turned, her emerald gown flowing around them like water. "I think you saw something you wanted and decided to take it. The fact that you rescued me from Marcus was convenient, but I don't think it was entirely altruistic." Dante was quiet for several measures of the music. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. "You're not wrong. I saw you earlier tonight, before the incident with your ex-husband. You were standing by the Impressionist paintings, and you looked... what? Free," he said simply. "Like you had fought hard for every moment of peace in your life. It was... attractive." The sincerity in his voice caught Elena off guard. She had expected smooth charm, or practiced seduction, not this quiet honesty. "And then I saw him put his hands on you," Dante continued, his voice hardening slightly. "And I wanted to kill him." Elena stumbled slightly, and Dante's arm tightened around her to steady her. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," she whispered. "You say things like that so casually. Would you prefer I lie about who I am?" "I would prefer..." Elena trailed off, realizing she didn't know how to finish that sentence. What did she prefer? A safe, boring man who would never make her pulse race? A predictable relationship that would never challenge or surprise her? What would you prefer, Elena? Dante's voice was low, intimate, meant only for her ears. "I prefer not to get involved with men who could have me killed if I annoy them," she said, but there was no real conviction in her words. "I would never hurt you," Dante said again, and this time there was something almost vulnerable in his admission. "I know you have no reason to believe me, but it's true." The song was ending, but neither of them made any move to separate. Elena found herself studying the strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair was just beginning to show silver at the temples. He was undeniably handsome, but it was more than that. There was an intensity about him that made her feel truly seen for the first time in years. Elena. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "Have dinner with me." "Mr. Rossellini. Dante. And it's just dinner." Elena almost laughed. "Nothing is just anything with you, is it?" "No," he admitted with a slight smile. "Probably not. But I'd like the chance to show you that I'm more than my reputation." Before Elena could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. Marcus had returned, and this time he had brought backup. 2 men in cheap suits who were clearly trying to look intimidating as they scanned the crowd. "Stay here," Dante said, his entire demeanor shifting from charming suitor to something far more dangerous. "No." Elena caught his arm. "Don't make this worse. I'll just leave through the back." "You shouldn't have to run from him." "And you shouldn't have to fight my battles," Elena replied firmly. "I've been handling Marcus for years. I can handle him now." Dante looked down at her with something that might have been respect. "Together, then." They approached Marcus and his hired muscle together, Elena's hand still resting on Dante's arm. She could feel the coiled tension in his body, like a predator preparing to strike, but his expression remained perfectly calm. "I thought we had an understanding, Marcus," Dante said pleasantly. "I'm not leaving without talking to my wife," Marcus slurred, clearly having consumed more alcohol since his hasty exit. "She's been filling my daughter's head with lies about me." "Ex-wife," Elena corrected again, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "And Sofia is 18 now. She makes her own decisions about whether she wants a relationship with you." Because you've poisoned her against me. No, Marcus. You did that all by yourself. Elena stepped forward slightly, drawing strength from Dante's solid presence beside her. Every time you showed up drunk to her school plays. Every time you broke a promise to take her somewhere. Every time you screamed at me in front of her. You want to know why your daughter doesn't want to see you? Look in a mirror. Marcus's face turned red with rage, and he lurched toward Elena. But before he could take more than a step, both of his companions suddenly looked very uncomfortable. Mr. Rossellini, one of them said nervously, we didn't know you were involved. Dante smiled, and it was absolutely terrifying. Now you do. Come on, Marcus, the second man muttered, grabbing Marcus's arm. Let's go. I'm not done. Marcus started to protest, but his hired muscle was already dragging him toward the exit. Yes, you are, Elena called after him. And, Marcus, if you ever approach me again, you won't have to worry about Mr. Rossellini. I'll destroy you in court myself. As soon as Marcus and his men were gone, Elena felt her knees go weak. The adrenaline that had been keeping her upright suddenly drained away, leaving her shaky and exhausted. Hey, Dante said softly, his hands moving to steady her. You're all right. He's gone. I can't believe he brought muscle to a charity gala, Elena laughed, weakly. Even for Marcus, that's a new low. He won't be back, Dante said with quiet certainty. I'll make sure of it. Elena looked up at him, this dangerous, complicated man who had stepped into her life like something out of a forbidden fantasy. Why are you helping me? I told you. I saw you earlier, and you looked free. His thumb brushed gently across her cheekbone. I know what it's like to fight for freedom. I respect it. The simple gesture was almost Elena's undoing. When was the last time someone had touched her like that? Not demanding or taking, but offering comfort. I should go home, she whispered. Let me take you, Dante said. It's not safe for you to be alone tonight. Marcus might be drunk enough to try something stupid. Elena knew she should refuse. Getting into a car with Dante Rossellini was probably the most dangerous thing she could possibly do. But the alternative was going home to her empty apartment, jumping at every sound, wondering if Marcus was out there somewhere planning his next move. Okay, she heard herself say, but just to my apartment building. Nothing more. Nothing more, Dante agreed, but there was something in his eyes that suggested he was hoping she might change her mind. The ride through Manhattan was surprisingly comfortable. Dante's car was exactly what she had expected, a sleek, black sedan with leather seats and bulletproof glass. What she hadn't expected was the easy conversation they fell into, discussing everything from art to literature to the challenges of working in New York's legal system. You're not what I expected, Elena admitted as they pulled up to her building on the Upper West Side. What did you expect? Someone more, she searched for the right word. Crude, I suppose. The newspapers make you sound like a stereotype. The newspapers have never been known for their accuracy, Dante replied dryly, especially when it comes to my family's business interests. Elena studied his profile in the dim light from the street lamps. Your family's legitimate business interests, you mean? Of course. But there was a hint of amusement in his voice that made her stomach flutter. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both reluctant to end the evening. Finally, Elena reached for the door handle. Thank you for everything tonight. Elena. Dante's voice stopped her. When she turned back to him, his expression was serious. The dinner invitation stands. When you're ready. I might never be ready, she warned him. Then I'll wait. The simple statement hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility and promise. Elena felt something inside her chest clench with an emotion she didn't want to name. Good night, Dante. Good night, Elena. Elena made it all the way to her apartment door before she admitted to herself that she was already hoping he would call. The next 3 days passed in a blur of court appearances and client meetings, but Elena found her thoughts drifting constantly to Dante Rossellini. She caught herself watching the news for any mention of him, and when a colleague casually mentioned seeing him at a restaurant downtown, she felt an entirely inappropriate pang of jealousy. It was ridiculous. She barely knew the man, and what she did know should have sent her running in the opposite direction. But she couldn't forget the way he had looked at her, as if she were something precious and worth protecting. It had been so long since anyone had made her feel that way. On Thursday evening, she was working late at her office when her assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Morrison, there's a delivery for you." Elena looked up from her case files to see a massive bouquet of white roses, at least 3 dozen of them, arranged with elegant simplicity in a crystal vase. "There's a card," her assistant added with barely concealed curiosity. Elena waited until she was alone before opening the small envelope. The handwriting was strong and masculine, for a woman who knows the value of freedom. D. She found herself smiling despite her better judgment. They were beautiful flowers, and the message was thoughtful rather than presumptuous. No pressure, no demands, just an acknowledgement of something he had seen in her. Elena was still admiring the roses when her phone rang. "Ms. Morrison? This is Detective Rodriguez with the NYPD. I'm calling about Marcus Whitmore." Elena's blood ran cold. What about him? "He's been arrested on charges of tax evasion and fraud. We found some interesting discrepancies in his business records. I wanted to let you know in case he tries to contact you about it." "I thank you for calling, Detective." After she hung up, Elena stared at the roses with new understanding. Dante had said he would be making some calls about Marcus's business practices. She should have been appalled by this demonstration of his power and influence. Instead, all she felt was relief. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "I hope you like the flowers. D." Elena found herself typing before she could think better of it. "They're beautiful. Thank you." The response came back almost immediately. "Have dinner with me tomorrow night." Elena stared at the message for a long time. She could ignore it, pretend she had never received it, go back to her safe, predictable life. Or she could take a chance on something dangerous and potentially wonderful. "Okay," she typed, "but somewhere public." "Of course, I'll pick you up at 8. The next evening, Elena changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple black dress that was elegant without being too formal. She told herself she was not primping for Dante Rossellini, but the extra time she spent on her hair and makeup suggested otherwise. When he arrived at her building at exactly 8 o'clock, Elena felt her breath catch. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit that fit him like a second skin, and when he smiled at her, she felt 16 years old again. "You look beautiful," he said simply, offering her his arm. "Thank you." Elena was proud that her voice came out steady. "Where are we going?" "A little place in Little Italy. Family-owned, excellent food, and quiet enough for conversation." The restaurant was exactly as he had described, intimate without being too romantic, with checkered tablecloths and the kind of authentic Italian food that you couldn't find in the trendy downtown establishments. Dante was clearly a regular. The elderly owner greeted him like family and insisted on recommending dishes personally. "No menus," Elena observed as they were seated in a corner booth. "Giuseppe doesn't believe in menus," Dante explained. "He cooks what's fresh and what's good. Do you trust me to order?" The question seemed to carry more weight than it should have. Elena nodded, and Dante spoke to their waiter in rapid Italian that was too quick for her to follow. "You speak it fluently?" she commented when they were alone again. "My grandmother insisted. She said a man should never forget where he comes from." Dante's expression grew thoughtful. "She was a remarkable woman. Came to this country with nothing and built a life through sheer determination. Like you? In some ways." Dante leaned back in his chair, studying Elena's face. "Tell me about your daughter. Sofia, wasn't it?" Elena blinked in surprise. "How did you know about Sofia?" "I told you, I make it my business to know things, but I'd rather hear about her from you." For a moment, Elena hesitated. Her daughter was the most precious thing in her life, and sharing details about Sofia felt like exposing her heart. But there was genuine interest in Dante's eyes, not the polite attention most men showed when forced to listen to stories about someone else's children. "She's 18, just started at Columbia," Elena said, her face lighting up with pride. "Pre-med, with a minor in art history. She's brilliant and beautiful and everything good in my life." "She lives with you?" "During breaks from school, yes. She chose to live with me when Marcus and I divorced. It wasn't an easy decision for her. She was only 15 and still hoped her parents might work things out. But she saw what he was doing to you," Dante said quietly. Elena nodded, surprised by his insight. "She's very protective of me now, almost too much so. I worry that seeing our marriage made her afraid of relationships." "Smart girl." "That's not what I want for her," Elena protested. "I want her to find love, real love. I want her to believe that not all men are like her father." "Not all men are like Marcus," Dante said, and there was something in his tone that made Elena's pulse quicken. Their food arrived, interrupting the charged moment. Dante had ordered perfectly, homemade pasta with a simple but flawless sauce, fresh bread that was still warm from the oven, and a bottle of wine that complemented everything beautifully. "This is incredible," Elena said after her first bite. "I can't believe I've never been here before." "Giuseppe's family has owned this place for 60 years, Dante said. "His grandfather started it when he first came to New York. It's not the kind of place that advertises. You have to know someone who knows someone. Like you. Like me." Dante refilled her wine glass with practiced ease. "What made you want to practice family law?" Elena twirled pasta around her fork, considering how much to reveal. Personal experience, mostly. When I was going through my divorce, I saw how the system could fail women and children. I wanted to be the kind of lawyer I wished I had had. "You represent mostly women?" "Women and children, yes. Custody cases, domestic violence situations, divorces where there's a significant power imbalance." Elena met his gaze directly. "I help people escape from situations where they feel trapped. Like you were trapped." It wasn't a question, and Elena found herself nodding. "For 17 years, I thought that was just what marriage was supposed to be like. I thought it was normal to walk on eggshells, to carefully manage someone else's moods, to make myself smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared entirely. What changed?" Elena smiled sadly. "Sofia. One day she came home from school and asked me why I always said sorry when her father yelled at me. She was 13 years old, and she wanted to know if that was what she should expect from relationships when she grew up." Elena's voice grew stronger. "That night, I called a lawyer. It couldn't have been easy. It was terrifying," Elena admitted. "Marcus had controlled all our finances, made all the decisions. I had to remember who I was underneath 17 years of being told I was worthless." Dante's jaw tightened slightly. "And now?" "Now I help other women remember who they are too." Elena took a sip of wine, feeling more relaxed than she had in months. "What about you? What made you want to be whatever it is you are?" Dante laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his entire face. "That's a diplomatic way to put it. I'm a diplomatic person." "I noticed." Dante grew more serious. "I inherited my father's business interests when I was 25. Some of those interests were traditional. Traditional? Family-oriented. Loyal to old ways of doing things." Dante chose his words carefully. "But I've spent the last 20 years modernizing our operations, focusing on legitimate enterprises." "Mostly legitimate?" "The world isn't black and white, Elena. Sometimes you have to work in the gray areas to protect the people you care about." Elena studied his face, noting the lines around his eyes that spoke of difficult decisions and sleepless nights. "Do you regret it? The life you've built?" "I regret the things I've had to do," Dante said slowly. "But I don't regret protecting my family, my people. A man has to stand for something. And what do you stand for?" "Loyalty, family, protecting those who can't protect themselves. His gray eyes met hers. "What do you stand for, Elena?" "Justice," she answered without hesitation. "The belief that everyone deserves to be safe and free." "Then we're not so different." Elena felt something shift between them, a deeper understanding that had nothing to do with the wine or the intimate atmosphere of the restaurant. They were both people who had fought for their independence, who had built something meaningful from difficult circumstances. "Tell me about your family," she said impulsively. "Your real family, not your business family." Dante's expression softened. "My mother died when I was 12. Cancer. My father never recovered from losing her. He died 5 years later of what the doctors called a heart attack. But I think it was really a broken heart. I'm sorry. My grandmother raised me after that. Nonna Maria. She taught me how to cook, how to treat women with respect, how to value education and art and beauty." Dante smiled at the memory. "She would have liked you. Past tense? She passed last year. 94 years old and sharp as a tack until the very end." Dante's voice grew soft. "She kept asking me when I was going to find a good woman and settle down." Elena felt her cheeks warm. "And what did you tell her?" "That I was waiting for the right person." Dante reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "That I would know her when I found her." The simple touch sent electricity shooting up Elena's arm. She should pull away, should remember all the reasons why this was a bad idea. Instead, she found herself turning her hand over so their palms were touching. "Dante." "I know," he said quietly. "I know all the reasons why this is complicated. I know you're afraid of getting involved with someone like me. I know you've worked hard to build a life where you feel safe. But I also know that you feel this too." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "Whatever this is between us." Elena couldn't deny it. From the moment he had stepped between her and Marcus, she had felt drawn to him in a way that defied logic. It wasn't just attraction, though he was undeniably compelling. It was recognition, as if some part of her soul had been waiting for him without even knowing it. "I'm not looking for a relationship," she said weakly. "Neither was I." "This is crazy." "Yes," Dante agreed. "Completely insane. I have a practice to think about, a daughter." "I would never do anything to jeopardize either of those things," Dante said seriously. "Elena, I'm not Marcus. I'm not trying to control you or change you. I just want to know you." Elena felt herself wavering. When was the last time she had felt this alive? This desired? When was the last time a man had looked at her like she was a prize worth winning rather than a problem to be managed? "What would this be?" she asked quietly. "What are you asking for?" "A chance," Dante said simply. "A chance to see where this leads." Elena looked down at their joined hands, noting how right it felt to have her fingers intertwined with his. She thought about her empty apartment, her careful routines, her safe but lonely life. Then she thought about the way Dante had protected her, the way he listened when she talked, the way he made her feel like she was worthy of attention and care. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay?" Elena looked up and met his eyes directly. "A chance. But slowly, Dante. I need to go slowly." The smile that spread across his face was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "As slowly as you need." 3 weeks later, Elena found herself actually humming as she prepared for another evening with Dante. Their relationship had developed into something she had never experienced before, a perfect balance of romance and respect, passion and patience. Dante had been true to his word about taking things slowly. Their dates had progressed from public dinners to quiet evenings at museums and art galleries, long walks through Central Park, and intimate conversations that lasted until sunrise. He had kissed her only twice, once on her doorstep after their third date, and once in the rain outside the opera house. Both times had left her breathless and wanting more. What surprised Elena most was how easy it was to be with him. Away from the dangerous reputation and the whispered rumors, Dante was incredibly good company. He was intelligent and well-read, with a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. He remembered details about her work and her daughter, asked thoughtful questions, and never once tried to pressure her into moving faster than she was comfortable with. Elena was just putting on her earrings when her phone rang. Sofia's name flashed on the screen, and Elena smiled as she answered. "Hi, sweetheart. How are classes going?" "Mom, we need to talk." Sofia's voice was tight with an emotion Elena couldn't identify. "I'm coming over." "Honey, what's wrong? Are you all right?" "I'm fine, but I heard something today that you need to know about." Elena felt a chill of premonition. What kind of something? "It's about this guy you've been seeing, Dante Rossellini." Elena's stomach dropped. She had been carefully vague with Sofia about her dating life, mentioning only that she had been going out with a friend occasionally. She should have known her brilliant daughter would figure out the details. "Sofia, Mom, do you have any idea who he is, what he's involved in?" "We'll discuss this when you get here," Elena said firmly. "But Sofia, I need you to trust that I'm capable of making my own decisions." "I just don't want you to get hurt again." The concern in her daughter's voice made Elena's heart ache. "I'll be careful, baby. I promise." After she hung up, Elena sank onto her bed, her mind racing. She had been living in a beautiful bubble for 3 weeks, allowing herself to believe that what she and Dante had was separate from the rest of his life. But of course, it wasn't that simple. It never was. When Sofia arrived 20 minutes later, she was clearly agitated. Elena's daughter had inherited her striking hazel eyes and stubborn streak, along with her father's height and sharp cheekbones. At 18, she was already beautiful, but tonight she looked older, worried in a way that made Elena's protective instincts flare. "Mom, please tell me you're not serious about this guy," Sofia said without preamble. "Sit down," Elena said calmly. "Tell me what you heard." "Jessica's older brother goes to law school at NYU. He said his criminal law professor mentioned Rossellini as an example of how organized crime has evolved in the modern era." Sofia paced across Elena's living room like a caged cat. "Mom, he's connected to the mob." "I know who he is, Sofia." "You know?" Sofia spun around to stare at her mother. "You know, and you're dating him anyway?" Elena took a deep breath. "It's complicated." "It's not complicated, Mom. He's dangerous." "He's never been dangerous to me," Elena said quietly. "In fact, he's protected me." She told Sofia about the night at the Gala, about Marcus's behavior and Dante's intervention. As she spoke, she watched her daughter's expression shift from anger to concern, to something that looked almost like understanding. "He got Dad arrested," Sofia said when Elena finished the story. "He made sure the authorities knew about your father's illegal business practices," Elena corrected. "There's a difference." Sofia was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, she sat down on the couch beside her mother. "Are you in love with him?" The question caught Elena off guard. I don't know, maybe. It's too soon to tell. But you could be." Elena nodded reluctantly. "Yes, I could be." "Mom, I've never seen you happy like this, not even before Dad got really bad." Sofia reached over and took Elena's hand. "You smile all the time now. You laugh. You seem lighter." "Sofia?" "But I'm scared," Sofia continued. "What if something happens to you? What if you get caught up in his world and can't get out?" Elena squeezed her daughter's hand. "Baby, I spent 17 years in a prison of emotional abuse. I know what it feels like to be trapped, and this isn't that. Dante respects me, supports my independence, encourages me to be myself. He's never tried to control me or change me. Yet. Ever," Elena said firmly. "Sofia, I understand your concerns and I love that you want to protect me. But I'm a grown woman, and I'm finally learning what it feels like to be with someone who values me." Sofia studied her mother's face for a long time. You really care about him. I do. And he cares about you? Elena thought about the way Dante looked, at her, the careful attention he paid to her comfort and happiness, the way he made her feel cherished without being possessive. Yes, I think he does. Then I guess I'll have to trust your judgment, Sofia said finally. But Mom, I want to meet him. Absolutely not. Mom, Sofia, I appreciate that you want to look out for me, but I'm not introducing you to someone I've been dating for 3 weeks. That's not fair to any of us. Fine, Sofia conceded. But if this gets serious, and I mean really serious, I want to meet him. If it gets serious, you'll meet him, Elena promised. That evening, Elena was quieter than usual during dinner with Dante. They were at a small French bistro on the Upper East Side, and Dante had been telling her about an art exhibition he thought she would enjoy, but Elena's mind kept drifting to her conversation with Sofia. You're distracted tonight, Dante observed, setting down his wineglass. Is everything all right? Elena looked up to find him studying her with those perceptive gray eyes. Sofia knows about us. About you, specifically. Dante's expression didn't change, but Elena caught the slight tension that entered his posture. How much does she know? Enough to be worried. Elena pushed her food around her plate absently. She's protective of me. She's seen what can happen when I get involved with dangerous men. I'm not, Marcus. I know that, but she doesn't. Not yet. Elena met his gaze directly. Dante, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Always. Are you involved in anything that could put me or my daughter at risk? Not legally. I know you're careful about that side of things. I mean physically. Could someone use us to get to you? Dante was quiet for so long that Elena felt her stomach clench with dread. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured and serious. My business interests make me enemies occasionally. Most of the time, those conflicts are resolved through negotiation or economic pressure. But there is always some risk. How much risk? For you? Very little. You're not involved in my business, and most of my competitors are intelligent enough to understand the difference between legitimate targets and innocent civilians. Dante reached across the table and took her hand. But I would be lying if I said there was no risk at all. Elena absorbed this information, weighing it against everything she knew about Dante and everything she felt for him. Have you ever been married? The change of subject seemed to surprise him. No. Ever been close? Once. A long time ago. Dante's fingers tightened around hers. She decided that my lifestyle was incompatible with the kind of future she wanted. What kind of future did she want? A normal one. Suburban house, children, a husband who worked regular hours and never had to look over his shoulder. Dante's smile was rueful. She wasn't wrong to want those things. Do you regret not giving them to her? I regret that I couldn't be the man she needed, Dante said honestly. But I don't regret being who I am. Elena studied his face, noting the quiet strength in his expression. Who are you, Dante? Really? I'm a man who believes in loyalty and family. I'm someone who protects what's mine and takes care of the people who depend on me. I'm not perfect, Elena. I've made decisions that I'm not proud of, and I've done things that can't be undone. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. But I'm also someone who would never hurt you or let anyone else hurt you. Even if it cost you business, money, relationships with people in your world? Yes, Dante said without hesitation. Even then. Elena felt something inside her chest loosen and expand. She had been testing him, she realized, looking for the cracks in his devotion that would give her an excuse to run. Instead, she had found only steady certainty and a commitment that took her breath away. I'm falling in love with you, she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Dante's entire face transformed. Elena, I know it's crazy. I know it's too soon and too complicated and probably dangerous. Elena felt tears prick her eyes, but she wasn't sure if they were from fear or relief. But I can't help it. Dante stood up abruptly and moved around the table to her side of the booth. Before Elena knew what was happening, he had cupped her face in his hands and was kissing her with a desperate intensity that made her entire world narrow to this moment, this man, this feeling of coming home. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. I love you too, Dante said against her lips. I've been falling in love with you since the night I watched you stand up to Marcus, with tears on your cheeks and fire in your eyes. Elena laughed, a sound that was half sob, half joy. What are we going to do? We're going to figure it out together, Dante said simply. If you'll let me. Yes, Elena whispered. Yes. 6 months later, Elena was working in her garden behind the small house in Westchester that she and Dante had bought together. It was a compromise property, close enough to the city for both of their work, but far enough away to feel like a retreat from the intensity of their daily lives. Mom, Dante's here, Sofia called from the kitchen window. Elena smiled, brushing dirt off her hands as she stood. Dante had been traveling for the past week, handling some business in Chicago, and she had missed him more than she cared to admit. Sofia and Dante had eventually met, and after an initial period of mutual wariness, they had developed a respectful relationship built on their shared love for Elena. Sofia still worried about her mother's safety, but she had come to appreciate Dante's intelligence and his obvious devotion to Elena's happiness. How's the garden coming? Dante asked, appearing, on the back porch with a travel bag in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. See for yourself, Elena said, gesturing to the neat rows of vegetables and herbs she had been tending. Dante set down his bag and wrapped his arms around her from behind, nuzzling her neck. I missed you. I missed you too, Elena admitted, leaning back against his solid chest. How was Chicago? Productive, but let's not talk about business right now. Dante turned her in his arms so she was facing him. I have something for you. Dante, you don't need to bring me gifts every time you travel. This is different. There was something in his expression that made Elena's pulse quicken. Close your eyes. What are you up to? Elena, close your eyes. Elena obeyed, her heart starting to race as she heard him moving around, rustling through his bag. Dante. You can look now. Elena opened her eyes to find Dante kneeling in her garden, holding a small velvet box. The afternoon sun caught the facets of the stunning solitaire diamond inside, sending rainbows dancing across the vegetables she had been so carefully tending. Oh my God, Elena breathed. Elena Morrison, Dante said, his voice steady despite the emotion she could see in his eyes. You are the strongest, most beautiful, most courageous woman I have ever known. You've taught me what it means to love someone without trying to own them. You've shown me that real partnership means supporting each other's dreams, not controlling them. Elena felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she stared at the man who had transformed her entire understanding of love and relationships. I know I'm not the safe choice, Dante continued. I know that being with me means accepting some risks and complications that other men couldn't offer you. But I also know that I will spend every day of my life making sure you never regret choosing me. Dante. Marry me, Elena. Be my wife, my partner, my best friend. Let me love you and protect you and support your dreams for the rest of our lives. Elena looked down at this powerful, dangerous, tender man kneeling in her garden, offering her everything she had never dared to hope for. Behind him, she could see Sofia watching from the kitchen window, her face bright with tears and joy. Yes, Elena whispered. Then louder, yes! Of course, yes! Dante slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands before standing up and spinning her around in a circle, both of them laughing with pure happiness. I love you, Elena said against his lips as he set her down. I love you so much. I love you too, future Mrs. Rossellini, Dante replied, kissing her with all the passion and promise of their shared future. From the kitchen window came the sound of Sofia cheering, and Elena knew that despite all the complications and risks that lay ahead, she had finally found her happily ever after.